Welcome back. You're listening to The Voice of Russia. I'm Brendan Cole. Well, there were scenes of jubilation in Cairo's Tahrir Square when the Muslim Brotherhood's Mohamed Morsi, who once spent time in jail under Hosni Mubarak, was declared Egypt's first post-revolution president. The Election Commission considered for several days the results and gave Morsi 51.7% of the vote to 48.3% for his rival Ahmed Shafiq. But prior to the runoff election, the Supreme Council of the Armed Forces, or SCAF, dissolved parliament. Morsi has claimed that he will be a president for all Egyptians, but it is still uncertain as to what kind of powers he will have. The result may have ended a political standoff, but what does it mean for the country? Will the military give up its power or at least come to some kind of compromise? And what does it mean for the future of Egypt? To discuss this, I'm joined in the studio by Mohammed Chahin. He's an Egyptian expatriate who left the country in 1974 to live here in the United Kingdom. We also have here in the studio Mustafa Ragab. He's the Director General from Egyptian House in London. On the line, we have Victor Nadein-Raevsky from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations in Moscow. And joining us in Cairo is Dr. Omar Ashour. He's the Director of Middle East Studies at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. Well, Mustafa Ragab, what did you make of the scenes in Tahrir Square?
We could all see the jubilation in Tahrir Square and other parts of Egypt. And that was expected anyway because the people were frustrated and long waited for the result. But I say what added to that really was the early declaration from the Muslim Brotherhood for the results that made or added to the panic that was in the streets of Cairo. We're going through stages since the revolution, and every stage we've gone through was full of mistakes done by the people in charge of either the parties or the candidates that were standing for the election. Finally, we've had a president, the first president to be elected by the people in Egypt, and the result is very impressive that we have, for the first time, we don't have 99.9 in Egypt, it's 51%, which is excellent. And we should start to learn from our mistakes. The problem in Egypt that we expect things to happen overnight, like the mistake the people did when Mubarak resigned and they thought it's all over, everything is solved, life is going to be beautiful the following day. Life doesn't go like that. But if people expect Morsi to come tomorrow with the magic result to resolve all the Egyptian problems, they will do the same mistake again.
Mohammed Chahin, you left Egypt in 1974 to live in the United Kingdom. Did you think that you would ever see scenes like that were seen on television?
I feel great after what happened in Egypt, especially with the result yesterday. But I always believe that our new generation, because, October generation is very strong, very, very strong generation, and we have made a lot of effort bringing up probably children and young people who will never accept what we've been accepting before. And I wasn't really surprised. But the only thing make me happy that Dr. Mohamed Morsi, he is giving the impression that the revolution of young people in Egypt, supported by other members of Egypt, is going to be continue until they reach the target that they've been looking for. Another thing what I'm happy about, and Dr. Mohamed Morsi is going to bring us our ID again. I think the start is going to be good. It's going to be very, very difficult for Dr. Mohamed Morsi because 30 years that we have been lived in dark years, and Mubarak regime has damaged really Egyptian nation.
Dr. Omar Ashour, you're in Cairo there, Dr. Ashour. How big and how significant a moment is this for Egypt?
It's a huge step forward on the democratic transition process. The Tahrir yesterday was ecstatic with the victory of Dr. Mohamed Morsi, the first elected civilian president in the country. But they are also, as opposed to the celebrations in the jubilant atmosphere, they're also quite aware that this is just one battle that was won, that is just one step forward, and that there is a long way to go. And it will be also quite critical at the moment for Mohamed Morsi to appeal to the international community by saying that this is not it is an Islamic president, but this is not an Islamic state.
Mustafa Ragab, I guess the issue is here, people in the West and observers are saying effectively the military will be still controlling Egypt. Shouldn't the Muslim Brotherhood have gone back out into the streets?
Because the military council, we have to admit that they've been in power for so long. They have their own budget, they have their own governing body, they have like a country inside the country. And we will need the person who can break that down in negotiation, who can give us a result without going into the streets and have more blood on the streets of Cairo. We need this person to achieve that for us and negotiate that deal for us. This is what we want.
Mohammed Chahin, if there's a leader that has no power over internal security, for instance, or foreign policy, the 48% of people who didn't vote for him, will they view him as a lame duck?
If we were talking about the army, which I make different. When I say about military council, I said army because they're all from the army. I myself have too much love and high respect for our army, and I believe they have to be a very observer in everything going on in the country. Because as you see now, the Egyptian society is being divided. 6 April, Brotherhood, Salafi, whatever. So, too many ideas. It is a democratic, yes, issue, but again, people are very happy with a new situation, and they haven't got a really background how the politics run, how the economics run, how social life incomplete on the society, how it run. It's just a very naive view, except people who got experience, like Muslim Brotherhood. They have been suffered, like everybody knows, a lot from other leaders. They have a lot of experience. They're very successful people and very mercy people for others. If I can say the Muslim Brotherhood, if they didn't do what they did for the last 30 years, you will find dead people out on the pavement. They've been feeding people who is in need. They looked after people by medication free who in needs. They have buried people that they haven't got even money to be buried. They did it for them. They do a lot of charity stuff for the last 30 years, and nobody can deny that. But in the same time, I believe in the end, the army and the Muslim Brotherhood will cooperate together. Because the army, they hold a quite percentage of the economic of the country. And also Muslim Brotherhood, they are very clever to run the country as an economy. And they will cooperate together at the end of it to be helpful for the key element that we need, health and education. The interests of Egypt will be there always in front of them, because the army, they love their land, they are prepared to do anything for our Egyptian land.
What do you make of that, Mustafa Ragab?
Can we just say they have been doing an excellent social work on the ground for the needy people. And what worries me that they haven't got the political experience, as I can see from the mistakes that happened since the revolution until today. So that worries me, that concerns me. They have done an excellent work, no one can deny that, with the needy, with the poor people, with the sick people. That is excellent. But when I look at, since the revolution, starting with the referendum in the constitution until declaring the result very early, or they're not supposed to declare the result, I have trusted you to come inside the voting campaign, so you don't go out and declare the result before I do it. All these things, I just hope that they learn from their mistakes.
You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London with me, Brendan Cole. We're discussing the outcome of the Egyptian elections. I'm joined in the studio by Mohammed Chahin, an Egyptian expatriate now living in the United Kingdom. Mustafa Ragab, who's the Director General of the cultural centre, the Egyptian House. On the line, we have Victor Nadein-Raevsky from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations in Moscow. And from Cairo, Dr. Omar Ashour. He's the Director of Middle East Studies at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. I'm just going to turn to Dr. Omar Ashour in Cairo. Do you believe that? Do you believe that the Muslim Brotherhood lacks some political experience, and there needs to be some kind of, I guess, reassurances from Mr. Morsi as to what his path will be?
Yes, there was already quite a few reassurances but now it's time for implementing those assurances. So Mr. Morsi, a couple of days ago, he came out in a press conference with various revolutionary youth movements from the left to the right, leftist liberals, women rights activists, some amazing public figures. And they came out and yesterday he repeated the same demands that he repeated in that pressure, saying that he will appoint, earlier on he said he will appoint a prime minister from outside of the LGP, from outside of the Freedom and Justice Party, and from outside of the Muslim Brothers, vice president that may be a Copt or maybe a Christian Copt or maybe a woman. So he gave quite a few positive statements that he's going to be inclusive, that he's not going to discriminate between Egyptians on the political affiliation. And then he gave yesterday quite a reconciliatory speech, calling every segment of the Egyptian society, from the taxi driver all the way up. But the rhetoric is fine so far, but now it's time again for implementation. Many are demanding him to be more inclusive and to lead real change in Egypt towards a fuller democratic transition. That will be definitely a challenge, but as long as he sustains this coalition, as long as he stay inclusive without excluding the other, I think it is his likelihood, his chances of making that transition actually happen is quite higher. There were names that were recommended by many of the youth groups, like, for example, Nobel Prize laureate Dr. Mohamed Morsi to become the Prime Minister. Still, the news is not clear about who's going to be the new government. But I think if it was inclusive, then the likelihood of change and likelihood of winning another successful revolution will be higher. If it was exclusive, then he started to discriminate on basis of political affiliation, ideological background, and others, then we may be seeing things going in the wrong directions.
Mr. Ashour, can I just say, ask you a question there, because the people in the streets in Egypt now saying that Mr. Morsi will only say the oath in front of the parliament. And as we know, the decision came that Mr. Morsi from the Supreme Court that will say the oath in front of the Supreme Court. That is the law. So will Mr.
Morsi
follow the people in the streets of Cairo or follow the law? Because he hasn't said anything.
We have a situation now, and this is a big issue regarding the judiciary. The judiciary of Egypt needs to become completely independent. The Constitutional Court, what you had is a group of senior judges who were appointed by Mubarak regime, all of them, and they gave quite a politically motivated verdict, given the statements of some of the senior judges, the head of the Judges Club and others, saying that he will not follow any legislation coming from the parliament. A senior judge, the head of the Judges Club, coming out on ATV making this declaration. And you had earlier on an NGO case where the U.S. affiliates, the U.S. defendants, were allowed to leave the country based on a statement from another judge who is a member of the elections committee. That judge allowed them, while they're being on fire, to leave the country. And all of this shows that, and the judges came out and spoke and said that we need to, some of the senior judges, the more independent judges, the judges that we call leading the independent current within the judiciary, said that enough is enough. The judiciary has to be an independent institution, not subject to orders from any general or subject to orders from the executive.
Isn't it? But
the Constitutional Court decision has the various interpretations, and what the compromise is probably going to be that they will interpret the verdict as dissolving 1/3 of the parliament, the single district 1/3, as opposed to the proportional district 2/3. And this will probably be the compromise. But the compromise, again, is based on your political weight on the ground and the negotiations that is going on now between the stakeholders, the MPs, the Freedom and Justice, probably there.
So, sorry, having the Supreme Court is having decisions every day, and we're taking what we like and we're refusing what we don't like. So either they're there to rule or they're not there to rule. Do you agree with that? No, we said this Supreme Court now, since the revolution, are taking decision and passing judgment every day, and it seems like we're taking what we like from it and we agree with it, and we don't agree with some ruling at the Supreme Court, taking decisions. And we don't forget, we don't have to forget that if the Muslim Brotherhood didn't object to the new constitution when the revolution came out, we wouldn't be in this situation today. But we're not playing the blame game. We want to get on with life. We want to see that Morsi do the oath in front of whatsoever and get on with the job instead of complicating things.
Can't he make that compromise?
But there are two strategic issues that await any elected president at the moment. One of them is sustaining the independence of the judiciary by a clear law that empowers the judges and makes them immune to any influence of the executive, whether in the form of minister that is appointed by the president or any other influence. It has to sustain and empower the judges to take independent decisions.
That's fair enough, though, isn't it, Mohammed Chahin? That's fair enough that they stay impartial and independent.
I just want to ask Dr. Omar his own personal opinion about Dr. Mohamed Morsi when he do the oath in front of the parliament, of the MP. Doesn't he think is much better, because this is one of the targets of the revolution, that the voice of the nation must be the highest one now?
I don't think it should be the highest one. The voice of the Egyptian voters, the Egyptian people, should be the highest voice, and if their majority so far.
No, I'm talking about the whole nation, not the only parliament. The whole Egyptian nation.
Isn't the central thing that the constitution could take months or even years to finalise, and we could have this interim period where there is, if SCAF have the final veto over it, Egypt is not necessarily in a better place, is it?
No, Egypt is not in a better place at all until the people who are in charge of us in Egypt can sit down and talk wisely, and I say wisely again, about this issue.
Well, I agree. Like your constitution, what is going to do? And already you got an ridiculous situation in Egypt. What the constitution going to do? You got to do fact thing is on the land first for people.
Okay, well, let me turn to Victor Nadein-Raevsky in Moscow at the Institute of World Economy and International Relations. Mohamed Morsi said he wanted to reconsider the peace deal with Israel and build ties with Iran to, quote, create a strategic balance. What about the region as a whole?
I hope that will be a very good step towards the development of democracy in the country and in the region. And, just concerning everything that was said by Mohamed Morsi in the beginning, about international treaties, about international relations, and about the situation inside of Egypt, that he is a president of the whole Egyptians, of Muslim and Christians. That's very important. I hope that will not ruin the situation in the whole of the region. Mohamed Morsi is seen as a moderate politician. And as for religious beliefs, of course, it's a very important thing for the building of the politics, and to be just friendly to all the Muslim countries of the region, and not only. Egypt is a part of the international community. As I understand, Mohamed Morsi shows that he is paying his tribute to international treaties, to international law. And I think that Egypt now receives the opportunity to restore its place as one of the main countries in the region. And
so you have every confidence that Egypt's relationship with Israel will stay the same. The Camp David Accords will stay in place.
Well, but you see, first, the declarations are declarations. Declarations before the elections is one thing, and real policy, life policy, concrete policy, we'll see this policy in reality. Of course, I can't say, and I don't see any kind of friendly relations of Egypt and Israel. For up to now, it seems to me it's not just the way. I'm sure that Egypt will try to press over Israel just to turn its policy into another side, well, just to build up peaceful policy in favor of with Hamas, with Western Bank of Jordan. Well, it's very important for Egypt just to be a kind of mediator in the region, and that's why the pressing of Egyptian policy over the Israeli policy is very important in this occasion.
You're listening to The Voice of Russia in London with me, Brendan Cole. We're discussing the outcome of the Egyptian elections. I'm joined in the studio by Mohammed Chahin, an Egyptian expatriate now living in the United Kingdom, Mustafa Ragab, who's the Director General of the cultural centre, the Egyptian House. On the line, we have Victor Nadein-Raevsky from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations in Moscow. And from Cairo, Dr. Omar Ashour. He's the Director of Middle East Studies at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. Earlier this morning, I interviewed a blogger in Cairo. He goes by the name of Big Pharaoh, and I asked him his view of the scenes in Tahrir Square.
Many people are very afraid of the Brotherhood because 48% of the voters, they voted against him. And so many people, they do have a lot of concerns. And this is basically what people are talking about now. They are now talking about the dogfight between the president, or basically between the Brotherhood, because we did not elect a president. We elected the Muslim Brotherhood, basically, because they are the ones behind the president. He is merely the puppet.
Mustafa Ragab, I guess there's a big proportion of Egyptians that need to be convinced, isn't there?
It's very interesting to hear the point of the blogger, because a lot of the people, big percentage of the people who voted against, not for. So the people voted for Morsi, they voted against Shafiq. And the people who voted for Shafiq were voting against the Muslim Brotherhood. So we need to know that. And a lot can be said today, but you need to remember that what you say today will be taken against you tomorrow. I wouldn't be very happy with the statements that keep coming out from the Muslim Brotherhood and Morsi, especially when you specify two countries and lay your policies towards them. We should be very wise there, and you say we will review our foreign policy. Our foreign policy doesn't concern two countries only. It's the whole world included in this foreign policy.
Mohammed Chahin, I guess that's a big issue, isn't it? I mean, the Muslim Brotherhood, they don't necessarily have the trust of all Egyptians. They have the trust of half the Egyptians, but have the Brotherhood backed SCAF's transition plan. It said that it wasn't going to field too many candidates for parliament or for the presidency. It did. Where do you see Egypt going in the next year?
It will go for the better anyway, because it wouldn't be worse more than where. I think Muslim Brotherhood, if they practice really one of the meaning of the belief of the religion, justice with everybody, no different, Christian, Muslim, whatever agenda of politics he hold, and just be fair to everyone, I think that will gather all of us and we be behind them. Because those people, they have a key to stop them. Once you tell them Allah say, the Prophet say, then they have to stop. You see, they have background that you can stop them if they're doing anything wrong, different to the other. I can see Egypt will go for the better. They got very, very, very good young people now that when you talk to them, I've been talking to them last 2 weeks in Tahrir Square, and I can see how lovely young people they are, what they believe. And things going to good because people have every intention to do that.
Victor Nadein-Raevsky in Moscow. The scenes that we saw yesterday, very emotional. Is this a victory for the Arab revolutions, do you think? And this is something that perhaps the rest of the Arab world can look to as an example.
The Freedom and Justice Party, as they call themselves, that was the main political wing that backed the Morsi. It is a kind of moderate party, Islamic but moderate party. If we compare it with the other parties of this type, we can compare it maybe only with the Turkish one of the party of Erdogan and Gül. And I don't think that will be something extraordinary in the policy inside and outside the country. But what's important that this party is oriented into exactly the aims of the party are also modernization, not only the return to the old laws of Sharia, but also the modernization and development of the country. And we can only hope, just speaking about this, just speaking about the same things in the foreign policy. Now we can express only hopes that the words will be realized in a normal manner, with no revolts. Revolt and the continuation of revolution is very important just for the development of the Egyptian nation and the whole, because people must live better and the country must is obliged anyhow to restore the opportunities of these people. And that will be an easy task.
We'll give the final word to you, Dr. Omar Ashour, there in Cairo. Our guest in Moscow mentioned the example of Turkey. He's referring to the relationship between the military and Islamist governments. It seems to have worked in Turkey. Can Egypt look to Turkey as a potential model for success?
That's true, but Turkey has a long struggle since the coup of 1980. The military more or less charted the political landscape, wrote the constitution, empowered itself, had all the what we see now in Egypt, from the veto in high politics to the immunity against corruption and repression charges, and so on. But, after 23 years, in 2003, things significantly changed. The elected civilians became more and more empowered, and now many see the situation as turning around in Turkey. And I think the Egyptians here, especially the FJP, the Freedom and Justice Party, are looking to Turkey as the model to follow. Many of the mid-ranks and the grassroots went and studied the Turkish example and compared notes with Turkish counterparts. And I think this would be like one of the best scenarios, but we need to minimize the time. Egypt cannot wait another 2 decades for a transition, for a democratic transition. Hopefully, this will be done at a faster pace than the Turkish example. I think the best gift that the Egyptians can give to all the regions, especially to the Arab Spring in general, is for this revolution to succeed in empowering the people of Egypt and empowering the civilians, the elected civilians in this institution, regardless of the background. You can be a former military general and you're popular and you're effective and you're clean and you get elected and everybody will be rally behind him afterwards. But at the moment, if there is an elected president, an elected civilian president, an elected institution, it has to be empowered to take Egypt out of this 2 or 3 decades of corruption and repression and backwardness.
I would just like to mention something quickly, please, if you don't mind. Ask everyone in any power all over the world to help Egypt to stand on their feet, because it is very important country to keep the peace in the whole earth.
Okay, well, look, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much to my guest, Mohammed Chahin. He's an Egyptian expatriate now living in the United Kingdom. Director General of the Egyptian House, Mustafa Ragab, joining me here in the studio. In Moscow, Victor Nadein-Raevsky from the Institute of World Economy and International Relations, and Dr. Omar Ashour, Director of Middle East Studies at the Institute of Arab and Islamic Studies at the University of Exeter. He joined us in Cairo. So thank you very much to all my guests.